Today, UFC Louisville is in the books, and we are here to break it down. But are we only talking about the main card? Will we touch on the prelims? I'm going to be honest, we will not. But the main card we are going to jump off into on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it, right back with it. It's your boy Matt. We're coming off the heels of UFC Louisville, which went down in my hometown, my home city of Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. So let's go ahead. We're going to get off into it. Let's start out with the main event, which wasn't the most exciting, but it had moments. It was shaping up to probably have a fairly good finish, or at least a notable winner. And Jason Herzog ruined all that for everyone. So, the main event was Jared Cannonier stepping in there at 40. He's a man. Stepping in there with Nasruddin Imavov. Bro. And Imavov gets the win. So, let's just start out here. The whole narrative going into this fight, basically, everyone knew that Nasruddin is a good fighter. Okay, maybe not completely proven, but we know homie got some skills. You know what I'm talking about? Now, the other part of the narrative was Jared Cannonier is now 40 years old. Jared Cannonier generally relies on his stamina to outlast his opponents and to break his opponents. He generally, unless he catches an opponent with a devastating elbow or some sort of a shot to take him out, because he's extremely powerful, and it's not really hard for him to get a guy out of there, knock him out, you know what I'm saying? Beat him to the earth. But with that being said, generally what Jared Cannonier does is slowly over time throughout the fight, he's wearing his opponent down because of his really good stamina. He's really quick, he's extremely athletic, but from what I've seen, by far one of his best attributes is he wears his opponents down. So when they look up, it's like the fourth round, it's like the fifth round, because he does fight in a lot of main events, and Jared Cannonier is still there. And he might be pressing you up against the cage, but he's doing some dirty boxing. He's landing some short elbows. And every now and then, he'll throw in a takedown or he'll scramble into a takedown. So, that's kind of how that works. With that being said, Jared Cannonier pretty much seemed like he was doing a Jared Cannonier fight. You know what I'm saying? Seemed like your typical Jared Cannonier fight. He might have had a little bit of, slight bit of octagon rust. I mean, he hasn't been out for a super long time, but he's been out for a while due to an injury. Nevertheless, I feel like the beginning of the fight, Jared Cannonier, the first couple of rounds, he was doing his thing. I feel like Imavov mounted a comeback. And I believe at the point that this fight was stopped, because according to the judges' scorecards, Imavov was not ahead, I feel that the fight was pretty much up for grabs at that moment. Now, Imavov wobbles Jared Cannonier badly in the fourth round. Badly. Jared Cannonier is having a hard time regaining his balance. He's stumbling and staggering all over the octagon, and Imavov is pouring it on. Now, we have seen that Imavov, once he empties that gas tank, it's rough on the homie. He has the skills to be able to coast to the end of the fight, but it's rough on homie. So that is key here. So he's unloading. Jared Cannonier's wobble, he's staggered, but then he starts to somewhat regain his composure. And then he fires back against Imavov as he's getting backed up against the cage. Jason Herzog stops the fight. Jason Herzog, bro, you're regarded as one of the better referees in the UFC. I'm not really sure what he saw here. It's definitely possible, due to Jared Cannonier being so wobbled, moving all around the cage, trying to regain his composure, his balance. Jason might have already thought that Jared Cannonier was by far, way worse off than what he was, and had probably already made up his mind that he was about to stop the fight. He was just looking for a point to jump in. But then Jared Cannonier fires back, and kind of looked like he was starting to regain himself. So at that point, if the fight would have continued, who knows how it would have ended, because how much did Imov still have left in the gas tank? So, sucks for Jared Cannonier. He's 40. He's trying to get back to a title shot. This is definitely going to set him back. Although usually the UFC does take that into consideration if a guy, if there was a bad stoppage, something crazy kind of happened in the fight. The matchmakers take that into consideration when they'll make the next fight for Jared Cannonier to try to throw him a bone, so to speak. So, nevertheless, Imov goes out there. He gets the win. He calls for a rematch with Sean Strickland in his post-fight speech. I don't see that. Well, the UFC might not have much of a problem with doing that, but I don't see Sean Strickland taking that fight. I see Sean Strickland waiting it out to see who Dricus du Plessis is going to fight next, and then he'll go in and try to get the winner for the title shot. So we'll see how all of that shapes out, but Nasruddin Imov gets the win. I felt like if the fight could have continued, Jared Cannonier definitely had a chance at going ahead and pulling out a win. Nevertheless, that's how it went down. That's what went on in the main event. Now, as you could tell by my thumbnail of this card, let's move over to the co-main event, which was by far what everyone is talking about. In the co-main event, Dominic Reyes goes out there and defeats Dustin Jacoby. Now, first off, I want to say, because I was shading Dominic Reyes a lot going into this fight, and this is what I want to say. Sometimes, and this is one of those times, there are times when something happens that is so chef's kiss, has so much emotions tied around it. It's such a good feel-good moment, if there's such a way to word it, that you don't mind being wrong. That you don't mind eating crow, as Ariel Wani would say. That you don't mind taking that L. And this is one of those times where your boy Matt does not mind taking that L. Shout out to Dominic Reyes, who goes out there and knocks out Dustin Jacoby. Shout out to him. I was on here, I was throwing little jokes, little jabs at him, which is what you do when you're making these videos, you know what I'm saying? No disrespect in real life. But I was saying things about Dominic Reyes, and first off, his chin came back to him. His chin was solid. They're back together. They've reconciled where they separated before. You know what I'm saying? The chin has moved back in the house with Dominic Reyes, and they're trying to work out their relationship, their marriage. With that being said, bro, shout out to Dominic Reyes. He goes out there, he gets a win, and this was such a great story. You have a guy that went out there and for all intents and purposes, oh, wrong side. He defeated John Jones years ago. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at that fight, but it is what it is. Bro, Dominic Reyes, shout out to him. He goes out there after not only beating John Jones, but never being awarded that win, and then going on like a 4 or 5 fight losing streak and never being able to recover or regain what he once had or the status he was at. He was facing elimination from the UFC. If he would have lost this fight, no doubt they were looking to send him his walking papers. And then he, I guess he would have had to try to go over to PFL and deal with all of that. You know what I'm saying? So, the homie, his back was against the wall. You know what I'm saying? Everything was on the line. He's been dealing with a lot of just issues over all of these last few years. You know what I'm saying? And you have to understand, the weight of the world was on homie's shoulders. We find out that he's trying to start a family with his fiance. I mean, can you imagine being at the lowest point of your career when you were almost at the tippy top apex of your career in defeating John Jones, to be at the lowest point. Then you have a fiance and y'all are trying to start a family and everything is up in the air about your job. Because with the loss, you out of a job. And you got to go try to move on and start up with a whole new company, or just be a coach at your gym or do something like that trying to make ends meet. Shout out to Dominic Reyes, who went out there. He bet on himself. He kept it going. He didn't just not go do his last fight and try to go be a coach or try to go do something else. He stuck it out. He stuck with it. He goes in there with Dustin Jacoby, who I said if he loses this fight, it's his fault due to low fight IQ. That's not what happened here. Dominic Reyes went out there and he took the fight to Dustin Jacoby and took it from him. We're not going to blame this on any fight IQ. This was Dom, the Dominator, going out there and showing that he's not going to leave, that he's not going to lay down, he's not going to be cut by Dana White, Hunter Campbell, any Mick Maynard, any other matchmaker, Ariel Emanuel, whoever, Scott Coker, whoever you want to pull out. He's going to stay in it. He's going to make it. And the homie went out there. Dustin Jacoby even tested that chin. Dustin Jacoby caught him with a few shots, and Dom ate him. And then, you know what I'm saying, the magic happened. He caught Dustin Jacoby with a shot as Dustin was backing up against the fence, caught him with a devastating knee, and there you go. And just the release, the relief, all of the rewords that you could pull out, that the man felt, that you saw as an audience member, that you felt when Dustin Jacoby fell and Dominic Reyes was celebrating in the cage, and just the release that you could see when he punched the side of the cage, and then the awesome post-fight speech. Shout out to all the homies here in Louisville for being an outstanding crowd. You know what I'm saying? A pro-USA crowd, as you could tell, with all the USA chants. But shout out to them. They knew when to react and the fighters to react to try to create these awesome moments. So often the UFC goes to different, towns, different cities, different areas, and sometimes the fans don't get it. They don't understand how much their reaction builds these moments and makes these and shapes these moments for the UFC fighters. And that's what you saw. Feel-good moment for Dominic Reyes. You know, Paul Felder was already trying to book him another fight. Dominic Reyes said, nah. You could tell the homie just wanted to enjoy this win, just wanted to enjoy this money, just wanted to enjoy coming off of a fight weekend and not feeling down and depressed and bad about himself. Shout out to Dominic Reyes. I want to apologize to the man for the things I said about his chin. Him and his chin are together. They rock solid. And he goes out there and he gets the win, man. So shout out to him. And shame on the UFC. Shame on Dana White for not giving him some sort of a win bonus. Now, hopefully they gave him a little back room win bonus, if you know what I'm talking about. Nevertheless, shout out to Dom Reyes. He goes out there, he gets the win. All we're going to be talking about, like I said at the top of this, is just going to be the main card, because the prelims were trash. But once we hit the main card, everything ramped up. Shout out to the next guy. Raul Rosas Jr. goes out there and defeats Ricky Tercios. Bro. And got the performance of the night. Bro, shout out to Raul Rosas Jr. You would have thought that he was fighting in Mexico. The way the Louisville fans were all behind the man, the way they rallied behind him. You know, Ricky tried to start up the fight already with some heat. He refused to touch gloves. He threw a kick. He might have said a few harsh words for Raul Rosas Jr. That first round, at the beginning of it, Raul Rosas Jr. looked like he was about to do Raul Rosas things. But shout out to Ricky, who did well on the ground once he was taken down. He survived the round and eventually took Raul Rosas Jr.'s back, and probably would have sunk in that choke if Raul Rosas Jr. didn't have that iron granite chin which guarded and protected his neck. Nevertheless, bro, Raw Rosas Jr. didn't look the now he did kind of hoss him up, you know what I'm saying? He did kind of yoke him up, yoke up Ricky at the end of the round to try to, get the grappling control again, but the round ended and that was that. So I thought, okay, so Ricky did come to fight here. He is well schooled and prepared for the ground game of Raul Rosas Jr. Not so fast. Because in the second round, Raul Rosas Jr. went out there and did Raul Rosas Jr. things. And he defeats Ricky Tercios. He calls on a microphone for a 100K bonus so he can continue his mission of purchasing his mama a house. Shout out to him. Shout out to his mama. The kid is only 19. He's out there doing big things. He still looked huge. He looked physical for the weight class, which is good to see. So we will see where he goes next. He's calling to be at the UFC card for, I believe it's Mexican Independence Day, which they are going to be doing, if I'm not mistaken, in the Las Vegas Sphere. The Sphere. So, bro, shout out to him. Hopefully, I'm sure they're going to try to book him on that card as long as he has no injuries or anything, or no injuries in between now and then. So we'll see how that goes down. Shout out to him. He goes out there and gets a win. Next, we had another performance of the night show fight where we had Bruno Ferreira go in there and defeat Dustin Stoltzfus. Bro, shout out to Bruno. Bruno goes in there, really earned that Hulk Smash title. You know what I'm saying? Really earned that. You know what I'm saying? He had his Hulk Smash celebrations, but he really earns it as he goes out there and he knocks out Dustin. Now, let's talk about this. Dustin was doing his thing early on in the fight. Early on in the first round, Dustin is doing his thing. He's grappling him. He's trying to take a leg. He's trying to take a knee home with him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't looking too good for Bruno on the ground. When they stood up, Bruno seemed to be off balance constantly while they were striking. Also seemed like there was an adrenaline dump of some sort, or just he was definitely fatigued from that ground exchange. But Bruno came back with devastating spinning elbows, wobbled Dustin, went in for the kill. Dustin is still hanging in there, trying not to get stopped, hits him with a second spinning elbow, and that was all she wrote. Shout out to Bruno. Once again, shout out to the Louisville crowd. We put on for fighters that we enjoy. And we enjoyed Bruno, and, shout out to the Louisville audience, mainly because you would have thought homie just got a win in Brazil the way they were cheering for him. So that was awesome to see. Shout out to him. He goes out there. Hulk smashes again. He gets a major win. Can't wait to see where the UFC pivots and moves him next for his next fight. Then we had Julian Marquez stepping in there with Zachary Reese. Zachary Reese gets a performance of the night win as he goes out there. This was magnificent. You know what I'm saying? The way he stepped in, he caught Julian Marquez with a devastating body kick. It definitely hurt Julian. It didn't hit the liver. He wasn't about to shut down, but it definitely hurt him. He kind of tensed up for a second, and then Reese stepped in and hit him with a devastating uppercut, and that was all she wrote. It was a quick fight, huge celebration. Once again, the Louisville crowd putting on, celebrated as if this man was in his home city. It was awesome to see. You know what I'm saying? Great post-fight speech. Looked like he had a little bit of fire on the mic. That was outstanding to see. Shout out to him. We'll see where he goes next. He lost his first fight in the UFC, but he bounced back in a big way. It was awesome to see. So shout out to him. We'll see where he goes from here. And then the only other fight I was going to kind of address at the moment, well, maybe two more. Puna Soriano goes in there and defeats Miguel Baeza. This was pretty much a boring fight. I don't know what Miguel Baeza was doing. You know what I'm saying? He tried to take the fight to the ground, and then it looked like after that his gas tank was emptied. He had nothing left. And Soriano did his thing. Landed God knows how many strikes. He never really landed with a ton of power to get the guy out of there, but just basically just tortured the man on the ground with shots for 3 rounds. So shout out to him. He gets the win. Only other fight I was going to talk about, Ludwig Klein goes out there and defeats Thiago Moises. you know, Moises didn't really look to be himself in this fight. Didn't have a lot of the urgency that we sometimes see him fight with on the ground. So shout out to Ludwig Klein. He goes out there and gets a good solid win. So that was good to see. You know, outside of that, man, Carlos Prates goes out there. He defeats Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke. So, you know, that was a devastating finish as well. Devastating finish. He also gets performance of the night. So those are all the fights we're going to go over. Those are all the fights we're going to talk about. The only other thing I guess was notable is Pooja Tomar, the first female fighter from India, goes out there and gets the win and becomes the first Indian fighter to get a win. I will say she was gifted that. She did not actually win that fight, in my opinion. I scored it for her opponent, Riane Dos Santos. Nevertheless, she goes out there and gets a win. That was something else that was kind of notable. First fight of the night. Nevertheless, man, ended up, as far as when you talk about the main card, ended up being a pretty good fight night. Prelims were not good, but nevertheless, man, that's in the books. UFC Louisville, and we're going to move forward with the next card, which I believe is in the Apex, and it might not be that good, but we're going to break it down anyway. So, I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA, and I check you next time. Peace.